So today I'm going to talk about the war poets. Basically, the war poets are the writers who were writing during the time of the World War, which was going on during the modernist era. And these writers were, some of them were glorifying the war, like they were really telling this to the people that it is good to take part in a war and die for their country, and it is very chivalric for them. But they, on the other hand, there were writers like Wilfred Owen, Siegfried Sassoon. They were critiquing the war and saying that it is not for our well-being. It is just destroying us, and it is destroying us in with all force. Like there is nothing like it is benefiting us, or we are glorifying ourselves by winning the war. Even if we are winning the war, on the other hand, the soldiers which are dying, they are also human beings and they also have families. So they are trying to portray the reality of the war, and some of them have been war veterans. They have taken part in wars, and that's why they are writing these poems and writing about the critical situation which is there on the war ground, on the battleground, and how they are like the when they are about to kill each other, they are coming to know that they were not at fault just because they were of some other country. That's why they had to take part in the war, and they were just doing their duties. There is nothing like they have any personal enmity with each other, that's why they are killing each other. No, nothing like that. Just because they are bound by their duties, and that's why they are going for the wars, and they have to take part in a take part in the process of killing each other. So they are highly critical about it, and they are also talking about the horrific realities which are there in the war, such as the day before yesterday when we were talking about arms and the men. So it was also bluntly was also telling us the same thing, that it is not that chivalric or heroic to for a fight in a war, and it's not the reality. He is also not taking part just for the sake of doing his duty. He just wants to feel what is that so much, which is so much glorified in being a war veteran. And Mrs. Dalloway also sees the we can see in Mrs. Dalloway that there is a man, and he is having shell shock. So shell shock is something they have gotten so much close to death that they have a very horrific and horrifying experience of the war, which is constantly it's threatening them, and they are not able to live their life as they can as a normal human being. So they are constantly being terrified of the mere thoughts of the war. So these writers are just trying to depict all those situations which were there, and we, in the upcoming slides, we'll see how those poems are also talking about the same thing. Okay, so firstly, I'll talk about a poet who strongly believed in the chivalry and the way the war glorified everything. So he is a war poet. Those others which I'll talk about, they are anti-war poets, but we basically categorize them in a category which is war poets. They all are writing about war. But Rupert Brooke, when it comes to Rupert Brooke, he is someone who is glorifying the war, and he is known for his war sonnets. Okay, so he is not critiquing the war for its horrific realities, but he is supporting it as calling it to be patriotic, and to be something very chivalrous to do, to die for the country. So he is said to be a very handsome man in his youth, and W.B. Yeats also called him the handsomest man in England. And he has written certain works such as The Soldier, The Great Lover, in which he is talking about the wars which are going on, and how he is he is just telling about the beauty of being a war veteran. So I'm going to talk about his work named as Soldier, The Soldier, and he is you can see that it is a patriotic poem, and he is imagining his own death, And why even not he is not sad because of that, because he is dying there. He is somewhere saying that it is very uh, brightful event which is leading me to be such a great man, who is giving his life for the country. And he is not conveying the sadness or fear at such event. He is accepting it as an opportunity to make a noble sacrifice by dying for his country. So you can see the aspect of patriotism here, that he believes that taking part in a war is such a patriotic thing that it will be considered as a sacrifice. And one more poem by him is The Great Lover. And in that Great Lover, he quotes a line: "This one last gift I gave, that after men shall know, later lover, far removed praise. All these were lovely, say he loved." So he is saying that what means to be a good lover. The the last thing which you can be to be is a beloved, and the last love should be given to the beloved. So he is also on the other hand writing these love poetries. And he is talking about the nature of love, but again he is saying that it should not be like the case that because of love you are not doing anything good for your country. So you should have that balance in which you have to balance with the duties, and the duties as a citizen and duties as a lover, or as a part of a social community. The next writer which I'm going to talk about is very important, Wilfred Owen. And he was born in 1893 and he died in 1918. And his full name is Wilfred Albert Salter Owen. He is also known as a war veteran in the sense that he participated in the war, and he is very angry at the war and very pity for the people who are taking part in the war. So he was enlisted in the army and he died in the army while in the war. Okay, while he was in the war, he died also. So when he was once he was very much injured. So then he went to a hospital, and there he met another writer, Siegfried Sassoon, who became a very close friend of Wilfred Owen. And they both were writing similar kind of poetry. Okay, so he met Siegfried Sassoon in a hospital, and there they both shared about their ideas of not liking the war and hating it for its horrific realities. So he has written one very important poem named as Anthem for Doomed Youth. Anthem for Doomed Youth is opening with the line, "What passing the bells, all these die as cattle, only the monstrous angers of the guns." So he is saying that he is dedicating this work to the funeral rituals of the soldier. So it is basically the funeral is taking place, and he is dedicating the poem to the funerals which happens of a soldier. Okay, you must have seen when somebody dies in a war, or while serving in the army, they are given so much respect, like their bodies covered with the national flag, and they are given marches, and like it is very very much glorifying. Okay, so he is talking about that event, but not in a say like it not in a manner that it is so much like you are giving so much respect, you are given so much of importance on that day. But on the other hand, he is trying to reveal the reality which is there. So he wrote it as, when he was a world war he was there in the he was taking part in the world war, and he was a war veteran, and he was recovering from the shell shock. So he was due to that shock of the war, he was so much pitified due to the horrific realities of war, that he is writing this work. And he is telling about these funerals, that they could not hear the bell of heaven because the sound of guns were too loud, and candles are being replaced by tears. the family who has conducted the farewell on the very like he is saying that the families who are conducting the farewell, they have already conducted the farewell or the funeral on the day they sent their family member to the army or to the war. So he is saying that family has conducted funeral on the very days they sent them on a war. So he is also talking about the mentality of soldiers. So he is saying that they wanted to live with the lover, but they had to go, and their lover's pale face will cover their body now. So the tears which are coming from the face of the lover, which is there on the face of the lover, is going to cover the body now. So he's saying that they didn't want to go, but they had to because of their duty, and the family also accepted it that some maybe they will not come back. So on the very day they are sending them to the war, they have considered it that it is their funeral itself. Okay, so there
Ma'am, which
was
poem are you quoting right now?
what
I mean, which poem are you quoting right now?
anthem for doomed youth.
Okay, ma'am.
I told you the name. Anthem for Doomed Youth. So there was a question also from which the lines of the poem were given, and it was asking for the meaning of the lines. Okay. Next work by him is Futility. Futility is also a poem in which a group of soldiers are trying to save a dying soldier. So a group of soldiers are trying to save a dying soldier, and they are talking about the situation. Then very important poem is The Strange Meeting. It was published in 1919, and it is very important because it has been prescribed in our syllabus also. It was prescribed in the BHU syllabus, and it is a very beautiful poem in which a soldier who is going to hell, he meets his enemy soldier there, okay, whom he had killed in the war. So they both are meeting each other, and they both are in the hell, and they both are talking to each other. And the stranger soldier is greeting him by saying, I am the enemy you killed, my friend. I know you in the dark. So I am the enemy you killed, my friend. Like they are talking about the war, that they did not have any personal enmity. If you'll see beyond the war, they were supposed to be friends. They didn't know each other, they had no relationship with each other, and just because they were part of a army, so they had to fight and kill each other. So they both are meeting there and talking about the war, the scenario which took place there. And this writer, this narrator is saying that I did not have any other option. Like you were the enemy and you were on that side of the party, that's why I had to kill you. I had no other option, I was bound by my duty. Then very important poem, Dult et Decorum Est. It is very important because it was very famous also, and it is also talking about the horrific realities of the war. So this poem was published posthumously, and it is taken from Horace's Roman poet Horace's line. It is Dulce et decorum est means it is sweet and honorable to die for one's country. Okay, so the quotation says that it is sweet and honorable to die for one's country, but here he is saying there is nothing like that. There is nothing like that which is which you call that it is sweet and honorable to die for one's country. What about the family in which you were born? What about the relationships which you had? You don't owe any duty towards them. So it is he is condemning war, and he is condemning war, and he is just juxtaposing the beauty which has been shown in the wars and the poems written by war writers. So he is juxtaposing that, and he is telling the reality that it is not so beautiful as you say it to be. There is nothing sweet, nothing honorable in dying for one's country. You are dying for the motives of the supreme leaders. Okay, you are dying for the motives of supreme leader, to just to emphasize their power, just to emphasize their glory. They are doing the wars, and you are being mere, you just, we call it in uh, you are just being a pyada, the in chess we call it the army, the soldier. So you are just being one, you can say one toy in their hand, or you can say just an object for which, for fulfilling their motives, they are using you. So he is just telling the realities of the war. And uh, I guess I have told you about all the poems. Now, moving on to the next writer, which is the Siegfried Sassoon. I haven't written about him on the slides, so I will tell you a brief about him and you just note it down. Siegfried Sassoon was also a war poet, and he participated in World War One. So all his poems are also talking about the horrors of the war, and he is protesting against the continuation of the war. Like the war is continuing, he is saying we are not only losing lives, we are also losing all those resources. Like if you have seen War of Troy, I have seen a movie on War of Troy. So it was basically depicting that not only people were dying in the war, they were losing all those resources, like the water access was harmed, and then the farmers weren't able to do some farming, or the crops were ending. So everything is it is not only affecting the lives, but also the resources which you have. Okay, so Siegfried Sassoon is protesting against the continuation, and he wrote a letter to named as willful defiance of military authority. Willful defiance, DEFIANCE, defiance of military authority. So he wrote a letter, and due to which he was about to court martialed. Okay, so you must know what is court martial, and he was about to be court martialed due to that. And he met Wilfred Owen in a hospital because he was to be saved from court martial. So therefore he had to be sent, due to, like, just for saving him from being court martialed, they just planned a hack or something. So they sent him to this hospital, and where he is meeting Wilfred Owen, and they are discussing about each other and their lives, and then they are writing poems. Okay, so these are the important war poets. One another war poet you can write down, uh, but he is not basically considered as a war poet. He will come under the poet of 30s, which I am going to talk about next. Okay, so poet of 30s is a time period of 1930s, in which this group of poets were writing down, and they were writing about everything which is happening in their society. They were inspired by the civil war, and they were also supporting the ideas of manhood, and how the death is very provocative for them. And he is saying that these writers are writing about all different stuff. So don't confuse yourself between the war poets and the poet of 30s, because war poets were writing during the time of early 1920s and all, but these writers came after 1930s. Okay, so therefore they are considered as poets of 30s, and basically they are named as W.H. Auden, Stephen Spender, Louis MacNeice, Cecil D. Lewis, and Christopher Isherwood. They were also called as Oxford group of poets, or there is a writer named as Roy Campbell. I have written it in the last. So there is a writer named Roy Campbell, who wrote a work named as Talking Bronco, and he nicknamed them as Max Ponde. So it is a kind of a derogatory term, but he used it for these writers. So if you are forgetting the name of poets of 30s or the Oxford poets, just remember this Max Ponde.
Ma'am,
Yes.
they also call a Spylon poet, no?
Yes, yes, I'm telling you. And they are also called as pink poets. Okay, so Max Ponde is the name, and from this Mac, Mac, who is Mac? Louis MacNeice. Then Ponde, Auden, and then Cecil Day Lewis. Then Christopher Isherwood is also there. Stephen Spender is also there. Spender, SP. Okay, so you have to remember the names of these writers and all those groups of writers who were taking part in uh, the groups of writers who were there, such as movement poets, or you can call them movement poets will come later on, but these are the Oxford group of poets, also known as Pylon poets, because Stephen Spender wrote one work named as Pylons. Okay, so these writers were basically writing about the self-consciously modern world, which is not very much friendly, and it is all focused upon themselves. And you will see in the works of Auden, who is coming in the next slide. So you'll see how the people in of uh, the society are so much self-centered, and they are also talking about history. So they were writing if in all the genres, and they were also focusing on all the aspects. Okay, so Pylon poets are basically named because of Stephen Spender's poem, and they had very left wing attitude. They had tryst with Marxism, and they were not conservative like modernists, so they were very liberal. Okay, they were liberal, and they had very different political ideas, and they also participated and were inspired by the Spanish Civil War, which was fought between 1936 to 1939. Okay, so let's talk about Auden. W.H. Auden. He was born in 1907 and died in 1973. And his full name is Winston Hugh Auden. And he was an Anglo American poet who is regarded as the greatest poet of the 20th century. And he was born in England in 1907. So he was born in New York, but he immigrated to America. Then in between, he also moved to Germany. So remember this, that in moved to Germany also in between. Okay, so he is Auden group. The whole Auden group is considered as a pioneer of modernist poetry because they of their ideas, which was having a tryst with Marxism. So the central theme of his poetries are love, politics, citizenship, religion, morals, and the relationship between unique human beings and the anonymous and the impersonal world of nature. Okay, so they were writing in all the spheres. They were considering all the spheres while they were writing. And he is also said to have a very left wing idealist, because he has been a prophet. So he was preaching those ideas. And then he got American citizenship in 1946, which is very, very important. He went to America in 1939, but he got citizenship in 1946. So you have to remember it, because in exam once they had asked in which year he went to America. And when he went to America, he just turned himself to Christianity. So remember this, that when he went to America, he turned himself to Christianity. And I have again given you the name of the writers who were there as a part of Auden group. And he is said to be one of the writers who had very frequent image of lone wanderer in an empty landscape. So his poetries had an image of lone wanderer. Okay, the person who is a loner and he is wandering in a empty landscape. His first volume of poetry was dedicated to Christopher Isherwood, with whom he has written three plays also. So I will name those three plays. You just write it down. The three plays which he wrote were Dog Beneath the Skin, Dog Beneath the Skin, Ascent of F6, Ascent, Ascent, Ascent of F6, F6, and third one is On the Frontier, On the Frontier. Okay, so he has written these three works along with Christopher Isherwood. And he is said to have a homosexual relationship with Christopher Isherwood, and most of these Oxford group of poets had homosexual relationship, not with each other but some with someone else. Okay, so they were homosexuals basically. And Christopher Isherwood refused to marry girl named as Erica Mann, who was the granddaughter of the great novelist Thomas Mann. Okay, and then Auden went and married Erica Mann, and Erica was also homosexual, and they, because of that. He has a very much he has a lot of turmoil in his life, which he is also writing down in his works. And next important thing to note about him is that he was a chancellor of Academy of American Poets from 1954 to 1973, and he also played the role of Katharina in Taming of Shrew and Caliban in The Tempest in 1925. So these are a few important points which you need to jot down. Okay. And here I have given you the names of some important works by him. I'll be telling more about them and you have to jot it down. Okay. So the first work which I'm going to talk about is Funeral Blues. So, Funeral Blues is a poem which has a subtitle named as Stop All the Clocks. Stop All the Clocks. Stop, STOP, stop. So it is a satire, and it is a satire written in a form that he is mourning, so he is lamenting on the death of all the political leaders who have died in the world war. Okay, so he is talking about all those leaders who have died in World War, and he is telling about one imagery which is there, which tells that aeroplane is flying above in the sky, and he is seeing that aeroplane and saying that aeroplane should mourn the death of my friend by writing a message on the sky. So he is saying that it should be shown, that lamentation should be shown in all the spheres, in everything which is happening in the time right now. So he is describing his friend who has just died in the war, and it is said to be WB Yeats, because WB Yeats is also, but he has not died in the war. Okay, so he has not died in the war. So there is a kind of confusion about whom this poem is written, but he is describing his friend as my north, my south, my east and west. Okay, so he is describing his friend as north, east and south. Okay, then he says that as he is grieving about his friend, he is in a grief, the nature should also grieve along with him, and the star should get extinguished. So he is saying that the star which is shining bright shall get extinguished because my friend has just died. He was my star, he was a shining star, and now he has died, so that star should also not shine anymore. And he also wants to get rid of the ocean, because he says that the noise which is coming from ocean is just telling me about the life and how the calamities in the life occur, and how it goes back making everything normal, but it is not normal. I have My friend has died, and there is a void which can never be fulfilled. Okay. Next work which I am going to talk about is Musée de Boix Art. Musée, M-U-S-E, Musée de B-E, Boix Art. Musée de Boix Art. Okay, so Musée de Boix Art, A-R-T, art. Okay, in this work, he is talking about evolution. Okay, so he is talking about the concept of evolution, and he is saying that he is talking about from the point of view of every man. So he is saying that everybody's pain and their reaction to it is different. Okay, so like I am quite an emotional person. So if something happens in my life, so I react to it way more than the other person in my family or in my known does. Okay, so because we have a different kind of an attitude, everybody is different, so their reaction to certain situations and to certain incidents are also different. Okay, so he is talking about a painting by a very famous painter, Bruegel. Bruegel, Brueghel, Bruegel. Okay, so he is talking about a painting by Bruegel, and he is telling about the two scenes which are there. So he, in the first painting, he painted the birth of Jesus Christ. Okay, and in the second painting, he is writing about the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. So he is painting, not writing, he is painting the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. So he is saying that when he was being crucified, how the men who were crucifying them were unmoved by the pain which he was going through. Even the horses, they were rubbing their back on the trees, and they were not at all reactive towards it. So along with human beings, he is also talking about animals, how they are unmoved, how they are not reacting to certain situations. Okay, then another picture which he talks about is the fall of Icarus. So in the class before the day before yesterday, or, or in the previous class, I have talked to you about the fall of Icarus, in which Icarus and his father Stephen Dedalus, they were in a cage. So Stephen Dedalus makes one winged, waxed wing for his son, and warns him that don't go near the sun, otherwise your wax will melt and you will fall down. But when he saw the sun, he just Icarus wanted to fly high and high and high, and when he reached the near sun, his wax melted, and when his wax melted, he fell down. Okay, so when he fell down, that image has been painted by this Bruegel, this painter, and W.B. Yeats is talking about him that he is very people, those who are working in their fields, they are very amazed to see a boy falling down, and they saw a boy falling down from the sky, and he has just died, and nobody cared. They went back to their work, they started doing their work again. And says that there were a few children who were skating on the sea, and they also didn't react to it, they also kept on playing. They never bothered about the boy who has fallen from the sky. And another aspect in which he says that the dogs were also eating undisturbedly. So they were not the dogs were also not bothering about the death of Icarus. So he is saying that how this modern society is, and this modern society is only concerned about their chores and their works and their emotions. So they don't care about the people anymore, whoever is dying in the war or in the reality, they don't care about it. So he is talking about this work. Okay, I hope it is clear to you. Next poem is In the Memory of W.B. Yeats. In the Memory of W.B. Yeats. And it is also called as a subversion of elegy. So it is also called as subversion of elegy. In elegies, what happens basically, we mourn for somebody's death and we lament on their death. But here, the lamentation is, the mourning is for the troubled era. Okay, so he is mourning about the era which is going on. So this work is also called as subversion of elegy. So this work in the memory of W. Beats is talking about the achievement of W. Beats, and he says that human life goes, nobody else notices the pain, and it remains unnoticed by the man and the nature. So nobody is again caring about what you are going through, what your problems are in this contemporary era. And he is saying that Eats WB Eats spent so much energy for Irish nation, but it never changed. So, like when Shahrukh will teach you WB Eats, so he will of course discuss this, that WB Eats was trying to bring revolution. So he tried to bring the Celtic revival and all. So he is trying to bring so much change in the Irish nation, but nothing is changing. So they all are remaining the same. Every aspect of them is same. Nothing is. They are not even bothered about themselves. And the writer did a lot for them, but it was of no use. So so he is talking about that in this work. Next very important poem, which is there in the syllabus of BHU, is Unknown Citizen. The Unknown Citizen. The Unknown Citizen. Okay, remember the name. The Unknown Citizen. And this is a very nice poem. So you do you know what is tombstone? So tombstone is basically the when somebody dies, so there is a marble, you can say there is a marble architecture which is made on the grave or burial site. So there is a it is called as a tombstone, and on which some great lines or the years of his birth and death is written basically, and some great lines of how great that man was written. So there is a man's grave and he has died. Okay, and there is a number written on that: JS, then slant 07, JS, then slanting line JS 07 M378. M378. So remember this, they might ask you in the exam. Okay. So so this number has been written on that tombstone, and nothing else is known about that person. Okay. So apart from this number which he has been given, nothing else is known by the authorities. The whole poem discusses about how he was a good citizen, as he never questioned the duties of the politicians and the the leaders. He was a good citizen as he paid all the taxes, uh, all the bills, all the even if like he had to pay for something which is not permissible, which he might have questioned, but he did not do that. He paid all kind of taxes. He had no loans on him. And if there is a question in the poem that what about his family? So he was a good man and he had a family, but nothing is known about his family. Okay, then there is an ironical question in this poem: was he happy? So this is a question mark there, and nobody knows if that person was happy or not. Okay, nobody knows if he was happy or he was sad or he was content or not. Nobody is bothered about that. They are bothered about the fact that he has paid all the bills, he has paid all kind of taxes, he never questioned the authority. So he is a citizen, and he is an unknown citizen. He has no name, he has no identity. Okay, so if you have read that idea of Louis Althusser, in which he talks about the ideological state apparatus. Do you remember this? Ideological state apparatus and religious state apparatus. So, in that, it is, he says that, Louis Althusser says that we are already moving toward through the guidelines given by the authorities. So if you have read the work 1984, so in that also, that person doesn't go by the law, and that's why he is subjugated and he is sent to a jail, and then he is brainwashed, and at the end he starts following the big brother. Okay, so in 1984 this happens, and when Louis Althusser talks about it, he says that these things are made in certain way, these things are presented to us in a certain way, that we start accepting it, and we start thinking that whatever these authorities are doing to us is for our own benefit. Okay, next work which I'm going to talk about is September 1, 1939. September 1, 1939. And it is talking about the day on which the World War began. So it is talking about the day on which the World War began, and it is also written on the occasion of World War II. So it is talking about the occasion of World War II, which began on that day. And in this poem, he is calling this work as this year era as a very low and dishonest era. Okay, dishonest decade in which nothing fruitful happened, nothing good happened, but it was of age full of anxiety, full of he also wrote one work named as The Age of Anxiety. So he is telling that it was not an era which is to be very much glorified or to be talked about. It was just an age which was very much low and very much dishonest. Okay, and W.B. Yeats's Easter 1916 poem is also based on this work. Okay, so he wrote Easter 1916 is based on September 1, 1939. Okay, next work is The Age of Anxiety. The Age of Anxiety is written in Anglo-Saxon alliterative form. So, if when you'll read about the beginnings of literature, you'll see how alliteration was very much important. Okay, so alliteration was important. So, it is written in that same manner, and Pulitzer Prize has been given to him for this poem. So Pulitzer Prize was given to him for this, and this Age of Anxiety poem is set in a bar, in a bar. I'm so sorry, war. I said war. It is bar. Okay, so it is set in a bar. Then another work by him is Sea and Mirror. Sea and Mirror. Sea and Mirror. SEA, and Mirror, and the subtitle of it is A Commentary on Shakespeare's Tempest. A commentary on Shakespeare's Tempest. Okay, and W.H. Auden has referred to it as My Ars Poetica. W.H. Auden has referred it to as My Ars Poetica. Okay, Ars Poetica means my favorite work. Then next writer I'm going to talk about is Stephen Spender. So Stephen Spender was also a part of Oxford group or the Pylon Poets, and Stephen Spender is quite popular because he left Oxford without taking a degree and lived in Germany but his poetic tract, whatever poetic tract he allowed, which he wrote and which became quite popular, it allowed him to uh, teach in various American and British universities. And he was very much inspired by the idea of communism while he was in Germany. So he started taking sides of the socialist forces against the fascist nation. Okay. And he was also a bisexual man, and he married twice, and he concentrated on the themes of social injustice and the class struggle. So he is basically talking about the class struggle. I have mentioned some of the works by Stephen Spender. Amongst that, the most important is the Pylons. And the Pylons is talking about the expression, it is expressing the tension between the poet's love for a village and his admiration for the inventions of modern science. So he is in a conflict what to follow. Like, on the same hand, there is a kind of a tension which is there for regarding the village. He loves village, he loves the simple life which is there. And on the other hand, there is a kind of invention which is happening in the modern science. The technologies is bringing so many new things in the society. So he is confused what to follow, what to focus upon. And this poem is also regarded as a typical Auden generation poems because of its socio-political concern. So as we see that this confusion between the changing scenarios has always been there. Okay. And so therefore these works which were written by these writers, it became important because it is talking about those changing scenarios. And uh, the next work by him is The Trial of a Judge. So it is a long didactic poem portraying the persecution of intellectuals at the hands of fascist government. So I told you he was on the side of socialist government. That's why he took side of the socialist party, and he criticized the fascist government. Then he wrote one work named as World Within World. Here I have written it, World Within World. So World Within World is a memoir, and he has also written one work named as Oedipus Trilogy, which is a drama. Okay. So remember this about Stephen Spender. Next, I'm going to talk about Louis MacNeice. Louis MacNeice is an Oxford University student, and he wrote one report on Indian independence for BBC. Okay, so he worked for BBC and he reported on Indian independence and partition in some poetry collections. He is famous for the works such as Autumn Journal, then Prayer Before Birth, Burning Perch. Okay, the Burning Perch. His one famous work is Bagpipe Music. Bagpipe Music. Bagpipe. Bagpipe Music, which is called as a nonsense poem. So, Bagpipe Music is a nonsense poem. Then he wrote another poem named as Meeting Poem. Meeting Poem. So in this work, he is talking about two lovers in a coffee shop. Two lovers in a coffee shop, and he says that time was away and somewhere away. Time was away and somewhere away. Then another work which he wrote is Snow. 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 And he is telling about the sight that he is eating tangerine and seeing snow and experiencing the diversity. So he is experiencing the diversity, and says that there is also a coexistence of the opposites. Like, if there is black, then there is white. Okay, so he is telling about all those coexistence of opposite, and everything is in a harmony with each other. Then he wrote one work named as One for the Grave. One for the Grave. Here I have written it. It is a modern morality play. It is a modern morality play. And the strings are false. The strings are false is his autobiography. So remember this much only about these writers. They are not very major writers, so you don't need to know much about them. Then Cecil Day Lewis, he was also a poet laureate of United Kingdom. Remember this thing, he was a poet laureate of United Kingdom after John Masefield, and he was educated in Oxford. Therefore, he became a part of Oxford Circle, and he used one pseudonym. So you might be asked about this pseudonym. The pseudonym was Nicholas Blake. So he used one pseudonym to write detective novels, to write mystery stories. Okay, so he used this pseudonym to write mystery stories or detective novel. Then famous works by him is the Feathers to Iron, Magnetic Mountain. Then his allegories. This is a allegory which has been influenced by Auden. Okay, and in this work, Magnetic Mountain, he is talking about an ideal world and a new beginning where body and spirit can be one, where body and spirit can be one in this new world. Then the next work by him is A Hope for Poetry, which is a critical prose and a question for of proof. Okay, and he has also translated Aeneid and Eclogues. He has also translated Aeneid and Eclogues. He has also translated Aeneid and Eclogues. Then, very famous writer Christopher Isherwood, which I told you about the important works of Isherwood along with the Auden. So he is a homosexual man, and he met Auden and became his literary mentor. And he had very close relationship with Huxley as well. When I was telling you about Aldous Huxley, I told you that he translated what? Do you remember? Mahabharata along with Swami
Bhagavad Gita,
Bhagavad Gita along with
Paramananda.
yes, yes.
He
So
translated the transfiguration version of Bhagavad Gita. Thank you.
very good, very good. So his first novel is All the Conspirators, okay, which appeared in 1928. Just know the names of his works, okay, not much is important. Then he was a very good friend of a writer named as Truman Capote. Breakfast at Tiffany is a famous work by Truman Capote. So Truman Capote became a friend of him, and he was influenced by Berlin Stories, which was written by Christopher Isherwood. Then I told you about the Dog Beneath the Skin and Ascent of F6. So these were the writers these were the works which he wrote along with Auden. Okay, and these are the poet, like Ascent of F6 is a poetic play which is depicting about the story of Michael Ransom, who is a climber, and he accepts the offer of the British press and the government to sponsor an expedition at the peak of F6, which is a mountain on the border of a British colony in a fictional country which is there named as Austinia. Okay, so Ransom is destroyed by the haste to complete the expedition ahead of Austinian climbers. And the next work which I told you that he wrote along with Auden is On the Frontier. Then he wrote certain works on Vedanta, like I told you Bhagavad Gita along with Prabhavananda, and then works such as Vedanta for Modern Man, An Approach to Vedanta, Ramakrishna and His Disciples, and the essentials of Vedanta. Okay, so these are certain works which are important. And okay, so I will stop over here, and